So Peter, we've got lots of different restaurant types here in Dublin. Say for example an average cafe style restaurant, what to you would be a good wine list in that restaurant?
A short one.
Good answer.
But seriously, I think most of the time the challenge is writing a good short wine list. It's easy writing a long one because you just keep adding nice wines. But unless you're doing analysis of how they sell, what's the point? I mean, if they're not selling, there's no point. But I think a good short list should cover lots of bases. It should cover a range of prices. So if someone wants a bargain, there should be a bargain. And it shouldn't just be cheap. I mean, genuine value for money. You probably won't sell anything too expensive, but you have to have some moderately expensive bottles, depending on where you are. Treats, yeah. There are people who want to spend money, and you have to give people that opportunity. And I also think you can do something strategic, because many people won't buy the most expensive wine on the list, but they might buy the second most expensive. So you almost have to have a sacrificial top-end wine sometimes. In terms of selections, I think you need to cover lots of bases. You need to have some classics. You need to make people feel comfortable. There's nothing wrong with Chablis if it's good Chablis. It might be a cliche, but if it's good Chablis, it deserves a place. Sancerre the same. You know, people say, oh God, Sancerre, Chablis, they're really boring. They can be boring, but you can get too clever. You can end up having a list that's so esoteric, nobody knows.
And what about brands, Peter? Or when I say brands, recognised wines?
Well, I would say there's two kinds of brands in wine. There's, if you like, soft brands. Things like Pinot Grigio is a brand in a sense. Rioja's a brand in a sense. In the case of those, I think you should offer people good examples and make them pay a bit more. Because there are plenty of people that will buy those regardless. And if you try and find the cheapest Pinot Grigio you can, they'll still buy it. You're sort of cutting off your nose to spite your face. If somebody wants a dry white wine that's not particularly characterful, then there are plenty of other things in Italy you can put on instead of Pinot Grigio that will be better value for money. So if someone must have Pinot Grigio, make them trade up. Don't be a bully about it, but just give them something a bit better, a bit further up the price level. The other brands, things like, for argument's sake, Jacob's Creek. I actually think that lots of wine brands aren't that exciting, but I think Jacob's Creek, for a brand, is a good, solid brand. And I think there's no reason why you couldn't have the odd branded wine on a list, because, again, it gives people a reference point. People know they're paying a margin in a restaurant. That's the reason. The on-trade doesn't like brands, because we're worried that people will see what our margins are. Now, I would have said, perhaps your margins are, if you're embarrassed about your margins, perhaps they're too high. But I know that lots of restaurants have to make money from the wine list. So, price fairly.
Good point.